Would you like to understand how humans react to chaos and uncertainty? Then listen to this entire video where I explain it in relative detail and also give a personal example of how I react to it, which some of you maybe are able to relate to. Okay, so before we start this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about self-development, the nature of reality, dating, and how to reduce suffering in life. Let's go. Okay, so for humans, chaos, I would say, is a state of complete uncertainty where nothing is predictable. And chaos for humans is, I believe, the utmost terrifying situation they can be in. Why? Because nothing is predictable anymore. Now, to explain this a little bit, I believe the universe is infinitely complex. Now, as a limited human being, we need to find a certain way to maneuver through the universe without being completely overwhelmed by the complexity. So we need to find simplifications for the universe. We need to find a way to reasonably interpret it. Now, when chaos arises, the map that we originally had to interpret the world collapses. It is no longer valid because the underlying universe, which the map originally was trying to replicate, shifts. It is no longer the map is no longer an accurate representation of reality because the chaos arises, the situation changes to a place that you hadn't experienced before. Now, you suddenly have an inadequate map and you're left with the infinite complexity of life again, which you don't understand. And when you don't understand something, the human body, I believe, tends to go into hyperfocus mode in order to stay alive. Now, hyperfocus mode, I would say, is when you are unfamiliar with the situation and you need to pay precise attention to what's going on in order to stay alive. And your body does that because, humans are primed to stay alive. It's like evolutionary theory that the human species tries to propagate itself. And in order for that to happen, humans need to stay alive. So your fundamental function is to stay alive. And in order to do that, you go into hyper mode. And when you go into hyper focus mode, your body burns resources much quicker. To explain this, I can use an example of a car crash. Now, people who have experienced car crashes have sort of explained how during the crash, let's say the car flips over, they experience the car crash as being in sort of slow motion, where time slows down and they are able to focus. Essentially time slows down. And this is because their body turns into hyper-focus mode and they are able to sort of very delicately interpret the environment and what's going on, very specifically. But in order to do that, your body burns an immense amount of resources. And that's why people who have experienced car crashes afterwards say they felt absolutely exhausted. In the moment, they're in sort of adrenaline and they're fully focused. But after the crash, they have this drop where they sort of collapse in regards to their energy levels. And that's because being stressed, hence hyper-focused, exhausts you because your body requires far more energy and resources. Now, if we go back to the general case of when chaos arises, the main objective for a human is to essentially restore order ASAP, as soon as possible, because the chaos essentially kills you. And we're primed to survive, hence we try to restore order quickly. And it kills you because it depreciates your body much quicker. Because if we extrapolate this car crash example to life, let's say you live in a very dangerous neighborhood, you sort of need to be aware all the time that you don't get robbed or murdered or whatever. And that's if you sort of extrapolate that over a long period of time, your body will depreciate faster and you'll experience more permanent high levels of cortisol. And cortisol is a determinant of, it predicts the risk of many diseases like heart disease, obesity, diabetes, also Alzheimer's, etc. So your body essentially dies quicker if you're exposed to long time periods of chaos, and if you're stressed then and you experience, your body produces high levels of cortisol. Now this is where it gets interesting, because individual humans, I believe, experience chaos differently, and they interpret it differently, and they react to it in various ways. Some people are more sensitive to chaos than others, and I can say for myself, I am quite sensitive to it. I like routine, the familiarity of life, and stresses me out. For example, now I am currently finishing my master's degree and I need to find a job essentially. However, the current corona crisis has put many employers, businesses into difficult financial situations where they may potentially need to lay off people, and I don't know if I'll get a job, you know? And there's a lot of uncertainty as to what I should do with my life, what the next step should be, because I'm quite paranoid about taking an optimal choice, and it's a bit difficult to determine an optimal choice because there's such a high variety and you just don't really know what is optimal for you yet. And that's chaos for me. I just don't know what to do because the future is uncertain. I don't know what my next step will be. I can't predict it. I can't understand it yet. And that's really stressing me out. I'm very prone to that type of stress when chaos kicks in. And this isn't like complete chaos, because I still live at home now. I moved back to my parents from the Netherlands back to Germany, so I have that sort of secure surrounding. However, I don't know what my future will look like, and because I'm quite conscientious, I want to make sure I have an orderly environment, and I want to make sure I'm doing something useful. But I'm paranoid that I won't have that. That's stressing me out. It's just uncertainty, really. And hence, I should try to develop this chaos resistance. And I think everybody who's quite sensitive to chaos should do it, because the risk is that, for me now, for example, because I'm focused on restoring order as soon as possible, I might fall victim to being satisfied with a suboptimal solution. I could just sort of go for a really unambitious endeavor in life that gives me some sort of security, but that's only because I want to restore order as soon as possible, without actually sort of taking into account what my interests really are, what the sort of the most optimal next step would be for me. It's just about reducing chaos, and that's dangerous. And one may ask then, okay, how do you increase chaos resistance? Well, I think, I'm not actually sure how to do this, but I assume a solution might be chaos exposure. So exposing yourself to chaos, so you get used to sort of floating in chaos and coming to grips with the uncertainty of life. I think that might help. There are probably different ways to do that, like moving to a new country, or just doing whatever you're most scared of. I think that's chaos producing and might increase your resistance. But of course, I think my chaos vulnerability is strongly connected to my personality also. So one needs to find a sort of balance with how much can you actually change about yourself and how much is sort of deeply ingrained. Although I do like to follow the sort of growth mindset approach that you can change yourself, that your mind is sort of constructed out of sort of neuroplasticities, hence it can shift, it can change, and you are able to adapt yourself across your lifetime. You're not fixed because of your genetics or your personality. Okay, so in conclusion, chaos is the most terrifying situation for humans, and it produces stress and depreciates your body quicker, and humans are primed to do whatever it takes to sort of restore order as soon as possible. Some people more than others based on their, for example, personality could be a factor. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about self-development, reducing suffering in life, dating, and also sort of mapping out reality, like this video to a degree. And also, I'd be very happy to get advice on how to reduce my fear of chaos and my sort of sensitivity towards chaos. That could be very helpful for me, which I'd highly appreciate. Okay, guys, Thank you for listening.